Okay, this is Sudesu Servient.
Argotti.
Cold brewer.
Yeah, we have a new kind of guest dude today, Cold Brewer. We're going to be talking about Neverwinter and other MMOs right now. We did a commentary kind of discussion a while ago about Neverwinter when it first came out, and it's been some time, and now Cold Brewer is the only one still playing.
Yeah, it's because y'all suck.
Yeah, we did suck at the game pretty bad. So, Cold Brewer,
Yes.
what is the state of Neverwinter now?
Well, with the new patch releasing on Friday, it's kind of in a intermittent state of lame. But I still play it every day.
All right, since it came out, kind of jumping over the hurdles. How's the journey been from then until now? You know, the ups, the downs, kind of just the highlights.
Well, I may be wrong, but it appears to me that it is far easier to hit level cap now than it was during its release. Other than that, it is totally free to play, but I would definitely advise dropping a little bit of money here and there on it. It definitely speeds things along and helps you stay on top of everything else.
Yeah, and I pick it up every now and then. I'm definitely further out of the loop than Cold Brewer is.
Yeah, because you suck.
Yeah, I do. But basically, when I have been playing, it's been nice. I've been seeing some of the stuff they've added. The Dragon expansions have been something I think was sorely needed. Everything else.
Well, yeah, it is called Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Dragons are kind of necessary.
I mean, I understand what you're saying about, it being easier to get to level cap now, but honestly, for me, it wasn't that hard to get to the cap to start with. So, but then again, I think you have different perspective when you only grind one character versus grinding.
Yeah, I have every class at 60.
Yeah, a bunch of alternate characters. Argotti, from your state with World of Warcraft and all of its expansions, and from what you remember of Neverwinter, what are some of your thoughts on the whole MMO sphere?
Neverwinter is a really standard free-to-play MMO. It's in Dungeons and Dragons, so that's cool, but I don't know. It just really felt generic to me. It was the whole thing, and yeah, I know I play WoW, the most generic MMO, but that's because it was the one that did it first, and everything else is copying off of it. So
yeah, I mean, I think there's to kind of set the tone. There is a clear distinction between MMOs and then the modern MMO. And then I think World of Warcraft definitely did define the modern MMO. Everything prior to that was more legacy, I guess you'd call it.
Are you talking like EverQuest and things like that?
EverQuest, Asheron's Call,
Yeah.
Ultima Online, Anarchy Online.
Argotti, you often have words about Asheron's Call. What's can you delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, Asheron's Call is the greatest MMO that you have never played. It is a completely classless system. Everything is based off of skills they can level up. You get points at the beginning that determines what skills you are trained in and specialized in. You can train in more later. You level up everything based off of XP, including your stats. It's just a great system that I wish other MMOs would go into, but they haven't yet. I think including Asheron's Call 2, although I'll have to double check that. I didn't get to play that while it was still ongoing. I think they recently re-released it, so I'll definitely have to check into that at some point. But yeah, it's just did a lot of things right, and it was my favorite of the legacy MMOs. I did play a bit of EverQuest, although not too much. Mostly because I picked the wrong starting area, and on dial-up it's really hard to navigate a fucking tree with no guardrails, so I kept falling to my death. And Ultima Online I mostly played for friends, and just never really got that far into it.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point. The issue with many modern MMOs is their lack of diversity, their lack of character evolution. You're stuck to one path or another, and you cannot branch out in a multi-class system like you can in earlier classless systems or even multi-classing systems like DDO. Being stuck as one role is good, and of course, in the fact if you want to maximize whatever it is that role does, but it's definitely limiting in play style. And that's one of my biggest issues with Neverwinter. I play mages in just about everything I can play, and in Dungeons and Dragons Pen and Paper, there is endless possibilities to spells that you can cast. When you're stuck on a very tight system, it really kind of limits the janky shit you can do.
Yeah.
And that's a big bummer for me, personally. That's why I play the Ranger now, because I can switch between ranged and melee, which is kind of fun. It just adds one extra layer of diversity, but even that is still limited in its scope.
Yeah, like to expound upon the DDO side, I played that not when it first came out, but a few years in, and DDO was definitely a eye-opening experience. There's so many builds you can do, and it's not a very forgiving game. It's very, if you mess up your build, there's so many things that it'll punish you for. You have to it forces you to be social. You have to get in a group to complete a lot of missions. There are solo builds, but that kind of goes against the whole point. The whole point is the flexibility of being able to customize your character. And so, DDO was great. It just, I wouldn't say that it hasn't aged well, but it's definitely getting on in its years. World of Warcraft versus DDO, World of Warcraft takes the cake as far as aging. I mean, it's still using, they updated the graphics engine a bit over time, and it still shows a little bit of signs of wear, but, that the plastic surgeon on World of Warcraft is bar none. It's like DDO doesn't even know what fucking plastic surgery is. But basically, we talk about classless systems and things like that, and I won't fault them for trying. Like Archage, I think, did a good best effort towards trying to move away from a class-based system. They still have classes, but it as similar to Asheron's Calling, but not as close as it needs to be, was based on your skills. You choose your skills, and that determines what classes you're going to be. But it restricts you to 3 classes, and you have certain builds you got to do. Doing something like a Gish is difficult. So, I mean, I enjoyed Archage playing it, but it wears on you after a while. It's definitely not polished by any means, unlike the others. Like, I'll give Neverwinter this much. It's polished for what it is. I mean, you still, as Cold Brewer stated, you're kind of restricted to what you're playing. Kind of going off that note into branching systems. Argata, you played a bit of Final Fantasy XI?
A small bit, not nearly as much as some of my other friends, but I did get to mid-30s, I believe, with one of my characters, or classes, I guess, that you basically had one character, but you could go into all the classes. It was fun. My big problem with it is I'm kind of the antithesis of most MMO players. I'm a solo MMOer, and Final Fantasy 11, and I believe also 14, I haven't gotten far into it. I'm actually going to restart my subscription here shortly, but they force you into being on a team after like level 10 or so.
They definitely do, unfortunately, but...
Yeah. So, that was one thing I didn't like of that, but I have heard a lot of great stories from it.
Well,
yeah.
that brings up an interesting dynamic, is if you have a small group of friends that you are tight-knit with and can get to play, being forced into a party is not necessarily a bad thing. However, if you're experimenting with a game by yourself or you have different schedules than your friends and cohorts, then they can be very frustrating. I know when I get stuck with puppies that are terrible, it makes my experience terrible. Or if I am playing terribly, I'm sure it affects the people that I'm playing with in the same way.
Oh yes.
Yeah, it's like that for me on DDO. DDO, I loved it, but I could never get to cap because you get to a point and then you get to some of the missions where you just don't, you want to solo it because it's not that the party members are crappy necessarily, it's just you can't get a party together. And then I will say that if it is going to force a party on you, the party queue systems I like in some of the modern MMOs versus some of the older stuff. I think if DDO had that formula integrated, it wouldn't necessarily be perfect, but it'd be a lot better than what it is. It'd be a lot easier to solo, even though you're not really soloing. You'd be forced into a party. And I mean, I've recently picked back up into FF14, and I'm enjoying what I'm playing so far. As far as like my favorite so far, it'd be a real hard call. I did used to play Cabal online a bit, and I just enjoyed it for the playstyle. It was definitely over the top, very terrible graphics, but there was something addicting to it. I liked the way they built into the lore of the different classes. Argati, so far, I'm guessing World of Warcraft is your choice, aside from maybe Asheron's Call?
Yeah, ones that I'll keep playing probably for the foreseeable future will be World of Warcraft. Asheron's Call, just with how old it is, it really limits you on what can be installed on your computer even to run it. If they did like a modern re-release where they just like upgraded the system, maybe added some stuff, because it's so old it doesn't even have like a quest journal or anything like that, and the level range of the enemies are all messed up. So if they fix that kind of thing, I would go back to Asheron's Call in a heartbeat. But yeah, World of Warcraft is where I'd be.
Cold Brewer, so far?
I'm playing Neverwinter, and because I've spent so much time and have such little free time, I'm wary to start something new, to drop something I've invested so much of my life into. That being said, I'm definitely looking for something better, always, who isn't. From what I've seen, FF14 looks interesting, but I did not know the party dynamics that are required for play. That is kind of a turn-off, because it's just a random chance, you know?
Yeah. From what I've seen, there is a lot more solo content in 14. Like, I have a character that I think is level 15 or 16, and I only did one group quest, and that was basically to unlock the ability to do dungeons.
Yeah, no, I mean, you are, for part of the main story, you definitely do several party instance dungeons, but I mean, maybe I'm up to 35 right now, so I still have got 25 to go, and it may change, but up until now, almost all the dungeons are, I wouldn't say necessarily stupid easy, but there's like only one or two where there's some quirks, and usually you're going to get somebody in the party that at least can tell you what you're doing. You will obviously get idiots every now and then, but I honestly, for the runs that I've done versus other MMOs, I would say that 14 so far seems to have a lot less tards in it than others. So the player base seems like, a promising group. I will say DDO, I had some very, very bad experiences with some terrible parties. And it was part of the fun, though, because some of the dungeons, you can just get a certain distance and then catastrophically fail, and it is just kind of comical at how bad things can get. You'll sit there and you just watch these people. They've got, they spend $100 on some kind of way to res themselves, and they just keep throwing themselves into the grinder. I'll give DDO this much: how elaborate the dungeons are, and the depth of each one is impressive. You had the pyramid and the Egyptian style dungeons. You have some of the Necropolis dungeons that have a unique flavor to them. There's a lot to have. The jungle ones, I mean, hell, the
The jungle ones are hard.
Temple of Zoriat was an amazing. I love that one because, when you talk about chaos in D&D lore, I mean, very few games actually manifest it the way it really should be. In that one, it is you have some random element of chance where you could just get screwed. You have your healer, he gets hit by one of those orbs of madness, and he's done, and your party's done, and it just, not everybody's big on random chance, but I do like a little bit of element of danger like that sometimes.
Well, you're bringing up another, I would say, area of discussion, and that would be some of the hardcore geared MMOs. I'm failing to remember the name. I've played one not too long ago, whereas if you die, you have to create an entirely new character. Now, of course, that can be immensely frustrating, say if you die from lag or something like that, but it does make the game itself more interesting because there is an element of danger. There is not just a free respawn, oh, I'm awesome and invincible and immortal, which is cool and good for long-term play games, but when there's a chance that you really can have to start over completely new and lose all of the work that you have put into something, it definitely adds an entire new spice to a game.
Yeah, no, I definitely, hardcore, I'm not a huge fan of playing just vanilla as what I do, but I think it's an interesting element. You talk about unforgiving games. I think Argotti knows better than anybody. We had our little bouts of Dark Souls and such.
Yeah. Wait, who hasn't finished Dark Souls yet?
Nobody?
Mr. I'm gonna stop at Blighttown.
Yeah, I know. I haven't been able to beat Blighttown. I suck at those kind of games.
I do too, and I beat it.
Yeah, I know you did. You keep telling me that.
Yeah.
Way to suck, Serbia.
So what I'm hearing is that that should be one of our Let's Plays is you playing Dark Souls.
It may be a thing. It may be a thing.
Okay.
More like let's laugh at Sam.
So I think there's another MMO that we kind of should touch on because I believe we all played it. Tor, the Old Republic.
Oh, the Old Republic. Yeah. Shit. Hello. This. I probably wouldn't be the best person to start the. I can start it on a high note, but I think we should start it on a low note. Argotti, your thoughts?
I'll put a huge disclaimer on this. I've not played except for logging in to check my characters since they went free to play, but I hated the Imperial Agent when I actually went sniper because I thought that'd be cool, and instead it was shit for solo. But I did like Bounty Hunter when I was playing it. I didn't get to do too much of the group content, but what little I did play did seem fairly standard, pretty good. I did like how you could basically have two roles as your characters no matter what, for the most part.
Yeah, Colbert, did you wind up playing with that, or
Very
little? Yeah, very late.
But so I have no comment on the subject.
Yeah, no, I played quite a bit of Tor, and I only played the one class. I played Jedi Consular, but I did enjoy that quite a bit. It had really good solo play, really, really good solo play. That was one defining moment of other MMOs. Is it had if all you want to do is play on your own, is group exclusive content, but if you don't want to play it, you don't have to.
Yes, but you must understand just what MMO, massively multiplayer online.
Right.
So the whole necessity of solo, I think is important, especially if you're on a strange time frame, but massively multiplayer online games are meant to be multiplayer.
Right, and you can definitely have a multiplayer element. There's a lot of debate on what truly the multiplayer part of the title means. And I think, from my side, I don't think it necessarily means you have to play with others all the time, or technically not even at all. The main element there, you talk about the auction house, a lot of the things in the game that are influenced by having that many people playing the game. Okay. I think something like Dark Souls puts a good perspective, even though it is not an MMO. that style kind of defines the elements that a lot of solo MMO players look for. You know, basically weighs the game is modified by having that many people playing the game. And I will say one of the main benefits is the auction house system. Hell, Diablo 3, even as fail as that was with the cash shop system, if it wasn't real world currency, I don't think it would have been as big of a problem as it was.
Well, yeah, the problem is that Diablo 3 went too far into the MMO side with that, to where they cut back on how good the loot you could get normally would be. So the way that they changed that, it is much better now for the standard player, but it does suck for the people that play in the auction house. And yeah, I agree. Like, the auction house, that is one of the best parts of MMOs, is the economy, the auction house, that kind of thing. So you could help get stuff that you wouldn't get normally, or you could earn more money than you normally could. And then, of course, dungeons and raids, higher tier content, that's all good. And I will go into Group Finder, or I'll go into a raid on WoW for that kind of thing to experience it, because I want to. And then for people that want to do it, PvP, of course, is a huge draw.
Oh yeah, PvP is all over the place. I won't go too much onto that side, but
Well, I'm one of the few PvP players of this group, and I say I find it immensely enjoyable, with some exceptions. No one likes to get steamrolled all the time.
yeah.
I think that they need to take a look at balancing raw stats and, I would say, player success rate a little better on all games across the board. That being said, part of it is that random element, because it is fun to go in and steamroll others, but being on the receiving end of that is terrible.
Yeah, I would say as far as PvP goes, I mean, I think Guild Wars has a huge edge on that side, but of what I've played, Cabal had a decent system. The Nation War system behind that was fairly interesting. Rift Online had a nice element to it. I think Tor did a decent job, but it could be doing better.
Do you all remember that terrible game, Aeon?
Yeah, Aeon wasn't necessarily that bad, but it needed some improvement. I think basically the way I see it, I think Rift took everything that Terra was bad at, or excuse me, Aeon was bad at, and did it right. And then Terra is a nice one for the interface, how you fight, how you maneuver the character. It's more of an action-oriented MMO, while still keeping to the tenets of a WoW clone, I guess, as you'd say.
Yeah. And yeah, WoW's PvP, like open world PvP, it's all right. It's not nearly as terrifying as Asheron's Call was back in the day. I remember logging into the PvP server for fun and getting camped before I could even get into the tutorial dungeon. So that was all kinds of greatness.
I will say we had some hilarious times on tour with PvP and the Nation War element. We had some encampment that was protected by NPCs, and just one day randomly on the Jedi faction, we decided to just go in there and have nothing but our dudes go in and just wipe the town out with and kill some of the NPCs, any of the ones that we could kill.
I thought you said you were Jedi.
We quickly got dispatched, but
Sith motherfuckers.
hey, they got to get taken down. But yeah,
High-minded Jedi scum.
But yeah, no, I haven't gotten to the PvP on 14 yet. I may check it out in a bit, but I think as far as kind of what's lacking from MMOs these days, I agree with Argati. There's too many of them that are following the footsteps of WoW too closely. They really shouldn't be trying to beat it on its own playing field. They should be trying to define their own thing. I think Archage had some unique ideas behind it. I think they really need to polish the land ownership system there. Right now, it's kind of chaotic. It was a good idea. You get a huge plots of land that you can claim for your own and do your own thing, build your own house. And there's a lot of unique ideas there, but it really needs some polish. I think also economy. Right now, so far, all you have is the any kind of like tax rate based on population, the auction house, and maybe some MMOs where you can set up a shop, and that's it. I really think one huge thing lacking from MMOs that by now we should see is more mercantile, ways to, barter, do trade, basically have merchant as a class, part of
Or at least a subclass.
Yeah. And, not just maybe focusing just on trade skills, like actually have like appraisal skills, that kind of thing, where you can see it, and maybe that affects how you do it. So.
Well, I think you're starting to open an entirely new subject that really needs to be addressed. And given the choice, I would love to play a craftsman. But if you cannot create unique items, if you cannot alter a basic set, then it's really, underwhelming, I think would be the best word.
Yeah, I think a lot of single-player games have defining elements that a lot of MMOs miss out for because they try and follow the cookie-cutter formula to get ahead and basically beat out WoW. You think about, unique items, creativity. You've got Diablo with its crazy unique items that come out through the random generator. You've got Borderlands with its crazy weapon creation system. If you took some of those elements and made it into something where you can do crafting, and as your skill goes up, you get closer and closer to being able to define what comes out of your crafting and whatnot. I think you get some really interesting results. There's some single player RPGs out there that basically their whole premise is you own a shop. I mean, I know I've played a couple of them out there, and they have some nice elements that would be nice to see in an MMO. And I think one argument, talking from some of my other friends, they always are like, you're limited by resources and this, that, and the next thing. But I look at MMOs like Tor, they've got voice acting on just about every NPC, the amount of money and investment they put into that game. They showed what you can do. Now, granted, they followed some of the safeties and some of the typical formulas you see, but if they had the right direction, they could have easily deviated from that. So it's not a matter of that it's unfeasible and it can't be done. It's just a matter of somebody taking the risk. I think one of the things I see a lot of these days is all these Kickstarters running up, doing indie games, startup games, and you see the amount of money that some of these guys raise. It really raises the question, why can't somebody do an MMO from a crowdfunded source?
Because, MMOs, first of all, that'd go into a lot of bad areas, I think, if you did crowdfund it. And I don't think that they'd get nearly enough money for that. I think probably the minimum, and I'm just pulling numbers completely out of my ass here, would probably be like $50 million for an MMO.
It'd be pretty heavy
to do that. And if they did Kickstart for that, they'd probably actually need more for server space for that. And then most likely within 3 or 4 months it would die, just like most other MMOs do.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing that kills most MMOs is that the player base dies off fairly quickly. And I think our group is a prime example of that. We go in, do an MMO for a bit, and then we get bored, and then we move on to the next thing.
Excuse me, Sorbet. Not all of us do that.
Some of us cry ourselves to sleep in desperation to hang on to.
Would you rather be terrible at 10 things or good at one?
I'd rather save my money, but that's just me. But I think as cold brewers sometimes put, it's not the destination, it's the journey that matters. And I think that's one element a lot of MMOs are forgetting is
yes, absolutely.
The grind should be the enjoyable experience, not necessarily the end game content. I do. Go ahead, Argati.
Well, I mean, that is true, but you also do need to have good in-game content for the
Yes.
people that get there so that they don't then abandon you. Because, like, it could take you a year to get to the end of WoW originally, and now it takes, like, less than a month. But, you know, once they got there, then they either had to go through it again or they had to have something to do for that point.
Yeah, that's part of the issue I'm having with Neverwinter now. Is, you know, I've hit cap with more than one of my characters, and when you can no longer excel in one or another area, it becomes frustrating and is a quick way to lose your player base. When you don't throw new adventures, when you have a set number of things that you can do, and once you've completed all those things to the best of their ability, you're left waiting for a new patch or something else. They don't have enough dailies or unique content or even resources you can accumulate for something unique maybe in the future. The whole unique aspect of creation is lost, and with that, I think you lose a lot of in-game capabilities. The other issue I have with Neverwinter specifically is the lack of raids. You have plenty of dungeons, but there are few things as enjoyable as a raiding party of 40 or 50 characters laying waste or struggling even to complete an almost insurmountable goal.
Right.
Yeah.
DDO on the contrast there, I think, had some really nice stuff going on for its raids. And I think, getting back to the complexity of the dungeons, things like that, some of the hybrid dungeon raids that DDO has, I think, are one of its pinnacle crown jewels.
Well, yeah, I'm with you. If Neverwinter were to adopt a similar system to DDO, I think it could be one of the better MMOs out there. But right now, Argati's right. It's pretty cookie cutter. And there's a lot of things that you can do to change that, but so far they haven't really tackled those outside of the superficial. You can still collect unique companions and change what your gear looks like, which is something I'm very much all about, but it's still very limited.
Yeah, and that's something I think, again, Asheron's Call did well back in the day, is they might not have had in-game content all the time. In fact, this was back before there really was. Like, there's a few things in EverQuest, but what Asheron's Call did was basically every month was a completely new content patch, all kinds of new things to do, new quests, new things to craft, new monsters to kill, places to go, things like that. And they kept that up for like 11 years. So...
Yeah, and it'd be definitely an impressive landmark to set. One final thing I'll note as far as features go, we need to talk about new things cropping up. We can definitely bring that up. One thing I quickly wanted to mention on Perfect World side, even despite our gripes of them as a publisher considered or platform?
A publisher, I think.
Publisher, yeah. We all have our beefs with Perfect World, but I will say this much. For Star Trek Online and Neverwinter, their web-based auction house, and I believe World of Warcraft has something similar.
They've got basically like a phone app that interfaces with the auction house and a few other things.
Right. So those three having that should be... we talk about cookie cutter.
Mandatory.
That should be mandatory. That, I swear, you're sitting there, you're picking up your laundry, you're waiting for, I don't know what you're doing. You're waiting on something somewhere. There's always that time of day, you get off work, you got to do stuff, and you're waiting. You might watch a movie, you might check some image site or something, but being able to check your auction house stuff outside of the game, that should be a 101. And I think I tip my hat to Perfect World, despite their flaws, for doing that for Neverwinter and Star Trek Online. That is one major feature I do enjoy.
Their gateway has been down for almost a month.
Is it just down for difficulty, or is it?
Yeah, it's down for difficulty.
Yeah, and I'll give them that much. They're trying.
Yeah.
Hats off to Blizzard for doing it in the first place. I mean, I only can only give them so much because they set they're the gold standard for MMOs.
Now probably they'd either add Garrison to that or make another app for the Garrison for Worlds of Draenor. Just saying, Blizzard, come on.
Anyway, Cold Brewer, you wanted to mention the Foundry?
Yeah, I was going to say that I believe more MMOs should incorporate an element of player design. And that's one of the things that people do like about Neverwinter and DDO is the ability for a player to create content for the public, which is cool and does indeed put a spin on things, but I find them completely underwhelming in their rewards. And that's the biggest issue I have with them. And perhaps maybe I should invest more time into either creating or playing them to mix up content between patches or content releases.
Yeah, wasn't that set by Perfect World, like the rewards that come from that, like that's all on their side, like they set that?
Yes.
Yeah, and we actually should have Comrade Jack here, except that he's fucking in Montana now. But yeah, he would probably speak a lot more to Foundry because that was his favorite thing.
Yeah, his whole thing was being able. He loves being able to create content. I'll say this much: these days, you see a surprising amount of things come out. I mean, hell, we just had Besieged come out, and I see all the crazy creations that come out of that, and are already.
Oh,
some
how was
mods.
that? That looked like fun.
It is quite fun, yes. If you like making random machines to blow stuff up and or draw giant dicks in the landscape, go for it.
Yeah, I think we will have a groups play session of Besieged creating something random at some point. But that said, I see some crazy things come out of the woodwork, even single player, multiplayer, whatever kind of game, old or new. We take something as basic as 3D modeling. I mean, I see community created 3D models all the time. So before, I might have said, players being able to create their own model of an item or something like that with textures might be a little bit too high. But if the developers give the community the tools to do it, they will do it.
Yeah.
So
going back to another old favorite of ours, Warframe apparently recently launched a pack of skins that were created by people for it as part of a contest. So it looks like they're also kind of going to that territory too.
well, yeah, and it's funny because it gets back to what I was saying. A lot of the single player games have the elements that the MMOs are missing, and it all comes down to that safety net they want. They want to be able to make their money, but they're not willing to take risks. They're going to go with what is known to work, and in their eyes, that's World of Warcraft. Yet they lose their player base after a few months, and so you begin to wonder, what are they thinking?
Yeah, like I forget what the name of it is, but apparently there was some MMO that came out recently that was like, we're going to be just like classic vanilla WoW with how hard our difficulty is and with how old our raids feel. And apparently, like, now they have 2 tiers of raids and only one guild has beaten both tiers, and that's been out for like 6 months. And the game apparently failed really hard, from what I understand.
Yeah, so I think we're getting closer, but they still have a long way to go. Right now, I mean, I'll continue with 14. I know Argati will continue with as well, and maybe join on 14. And Cold Brewer is going to continue with Neverwinter. Maybe check out 14 depending on what he sees. But I'm not really seeing too much on the horizon on the MMO front. I'm looking pretty much all of my games that I'm watching out for are either single player, or if they are multiplayer, they're not MMO. They would just be local online multiplayer or local multiplayer. So, we'll have to see. We may come back and do another discussion on this down the road. But like I said, I wouldn't say it's necessarily dark times, but it's pretty stagnant at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, pretty much.
Zeit, hammer time.
All right. Well, this is Servient signing off.
Argati.
Cold Brewer.
All right. And we'll catch you on the next episode.